Welcome to The Silent Gossiper. Today, we're taking a ride back to 1993 with Poetic Justice, a film that blended love, heartbreak, and the search for healing into one unforgettable story. With Janet Jackson and Tupac Shakur leading the way, this movie wasn't just about romance. It was about resilience, grief, friendship, and the power of expression. Justice, played by 27-year-old Janet Jackson in Poetic Justice, is the definition of a woman carrying both pain and strength. When we first meet her, she's a young hairdresser in South Central, grieving the brutal loss of her boyfriend to gun violence. Life dealt her a cruel hand, and instead of smiling through it, she retreated into herself, quiet, guarded, and almost untouchable. But Justice had an outlet, her poetry. Every word she wrote was a reflection of her soul, her way of processing the trauma, the loneliness, and the hope she still held onto. She wasn't just surviving, she was trying to heal in a world that didn't make healing easy. And that's what made her journey so powerful. Justice wasn't your typical leading lady. She was flawed, she was real, and she embodied the struggle of so many women trying to balance heartbreak with the desire to still believe in love. Janet Jackson didn't just play Justice, she became her. At 27, she gave one of the most authentic performances of her career, showing the world she wasn't just a music superstar, but also an actress with depth and vulnerability. Now at 59, Janet remains a global icon, still touring, still inspiring. But for so many fans, Poetic Justice stands as one of her most unforgettable roles, because through Justice, she showed us the beauty and resilience of a woman finding her voice in the middle of pain. Lucky, played by Tupac, was a young man trying to find balance between responsibility and the chaos around him. In Poetic Justice 1993, he wasn't just another dude on the block. He was a father, a postal worker, and a man determined to provide a better life for his daughter. But life didn't make it easy for him. When we first meet Lucky, he's rough around the edges, quick with his words and quick to anger. But underneath that tough exterior was someone carrying the weight of real struggles. His baby mama was unreliable, his job barely paid enough, and the streets around him kept pulling at him. He was trying to walk the line, but every step forward felt like 2 steps back. His road trip with Justice showed us a different side of him. At first, he was clashing with her at every turn, but as the miles rolled on, we saw his humor, his patience, and his vulnerability. Lucky wasn't perfect. He was flawed, stubborn, and sometimes reckless. But what made him stand out was that he cared. He wanted more than the cycle he grew up in. He wanted stability, he wanted love, he wanted a real future. Tupac brought all of that to the role because in many ways, Lucky felt like him. Passionate, complicated, and layered with both fire and tenderness. At just 22, he made the character unforgettable. Sadly, just 3 years later in 1996, Tupac's life was cut short at 25. But through roles like Lucky, he showed us he was more than just one of the greatest rappers of all time. He was an artist who could channel real pain, real love, and real humanity onto the screen. And for many, Lucky remains one of his most relatable and heartfelt performances, a reminder of what could have been if Pac had more time. Chicago, played by Torry, was the ultimate man-child in Poetic Justice. You know the type. Loud, cocky, always running his mouth, and way too obsessed with himself. He stayed looking in the mirror, thinking he was God's gift to women, when in reality, he was just exhausting. What made it worse was how he treated Aisha, his girlfriend. Instead of respecting her, he was always putting her down, picking fights and acting like he was better than her. She wanted love, stability, someone who would listen. But Chicago wasn't built for that. He was too wrapped up in his own ego, too busy trying to look like the man instead of actually being one. And it hurt to watch, because you could see Aisha deserved so much better. But here's the thing. Chicago was real. He represented that dude we've all seen before, maybe even dated, maybe even been around. The one who has potential but refuses to grow up. He brought chaos to that road trip, but he also brought laughs, because for all his flaws, you couldn't ignore him. He was messy, but he was memorable. Torry nailed that role. At just 28, he gave Chicago that mix of charm and immaturity that made the character stick. And looking back, you realize Chicago wasn't just comic relief. He was a reflection of the kind of man who needs to learn the hard way that ego won't keep you warm at night. Now at 59, Joe Torry is still respected in the game, but for so many fans, he'll always be remembered as Chicago, the man-child who made us laugh, made us mad, and reminded us what not to be. Aisha, played by Regina King, was the voice of every woman who's ever been fed up with a man who just wouldn't grow up. She was Chicago's girlfriend, but let's be real, she was more like his babysitter. She carried herself with strength, with sass, and with that raw honesty Regina King always brings to the screen. Through the whole trip, you could feel her frustration. Chicago was too busy being into himself, running his mouth, and disrespecting her to realize he had a good woman right by his side. And Aisha wasn't having it. She called him out, she checked him, and she let it be known that she wasn't about to keep playing second fiddle to his ego. She was that homegirl who tells it like it is, who holds her ground, and who refuses to let anybody treat her less than she deserves. And for a lot of women watching, she was relatable. Regina King was just 22 when she stepped into this role, and even then, you could see the star power. She had already made noise with the sitcom 227 and Boys in the Hood, but Poetic Justice gave her another lane to shine. Now at 53, Regina is an Academy Award winner, a powerhouse director, and one of the most respected women in Hollywood. But for many fans, Aisha will always stand out. The woman who wasn't afraid to demand better, even when it meant walking away from a man who couldn't handle her worth. Q-Tip, man, his role in Poetic Justice was short, but it hit hard. He played Markel, Justice's boyfriend at the start of the film, and even though he wasn't on screen for long, his presence set the whole story in motion. Markel was the kind of dude every woman wanted, charming, stylish, smooth, and somebody who made Justice feel loved. They looked good together, they vibed together, and in those opening moments you could see how much he meant to her. But then tragedy struck. At a street party, he was gunned down right in front of Justice, and just like that, everything changed. That loss is what shaped Justice's pain, her poetry, and her guarded heart throughout the film. Without Markel, there's no Poetic Justice as we know it. His death was the wound that made her right, that made her cautious, and that made her journey with Lucky so powerful. And let's not forget, this was Q-Tip. Not just an actor, but a hip-hop legend. At just 23, he stepped into the role and brought a natural, real energy to it. He wasn't trying too hard. He didn't overdo it. He just made Markel believable, made him somebody we cared about even in those few minutes. Now 55, Q-Tip is still hailed as one of the greatest MCs to ever touch a mic, a pioneer in blending jazz and hip-hop, and a cultural icon. But for fans of Poetic Justice, he'll always be remembered as Markel, the love Justice lost, the man whose absence shaped the poetry she carried in her heart. Jessie, played by Tyra Ferrell, wasn't just Justice's boss at the beauty parlor. She was that older, wiser voice every young woman needs in her corner. More than a boss, she was a mentor, a friend, and somebody who saw the weight Justice was carrying. Jessie knew pain, she knew struggle, and that's why her words cut deep when she encouraged Justice to open her heart again. She was the one reminding her that love, even after heartbreak, was still worth the risk. And let's keep it real. Jessie was fine as hell. Tyra Ferrell had that presence, that look, that confidence that made you sit up whenever she was on screen. She wasn't loud with it. She didn't have to be. Her beauty and energy spoke for itself. Of course, Poetic Justice wasn't the only time Tyra stamped herself in the culture. Just 2 years before, she gave us Brenda in Boys in the Hood, Ricky's mama, carrying one of the most emotional arcs in the whole film. Between those two roles alone, she became a face and a force in classic black cinema. Even though Tyra's been off our screens for a while, her legacy is locked in. She's one of those actresses who might not have dozens of roles, but the ones she did left a mark. At 63 today, she's still respected, still loved, and I personally wish her the absolute best with whatever project she's got coming next. And then we have Lloyd Avery, the man who pulled the trigger on Markel at the very beginning of Poetic Justice. It was a short scene, but it carried weight because that single moment of violence shaped the story that followed. For many, his face was already familiar from Boys in the Hood, where he played one of the shooters who killed Ricky. On screen, Avery had this raw, intimidating presence that made him stand out, even in small roles. You believed him instantly because he carried that energy so naturally. But sadly, that intensity wasn't just acting. In real life, Lloyd Avery was a tough head too, and the streets pulled him deeper than he could ever climb out of. The same life of violence he portrayed on screen ended up consuming him off it. He landed in prison, and tragically, in 2005, he was killed while serving his sentence. He was only 36 years old. It's heartbreaking because Avery had the kind of talent and screen presence that could have taken him far. Instead, his story became a real-life reflection of the roles he played, a reminder of how thin that line can be between fiction and reality. Dedric Gobert as Lloyd is one of those faces that makes you pause for a second if you grew up on these classics. To anyone who watched Boys in the Hood, he's instantly familiar. In that film, he played Dookie, one of Doughboy's homeboys. You remember the one always rolling with the crew, rocking the pacifier in his mouth, chilling on the block. In Poetic Justice, Gobert shows up again, and this time as Lloyd. It's a small role, but a meaningful one, if you were really paying attention. We catch him talking to Lucky, and in that brief exchange, he's telling him that he's going to avenge Doughboy. It's a quick moment, but it ties directly back to Boys in the Hood and the cycle of violence that so many young black men were trapped in at the time. It's like John Singleton intentionally wove his presence in to remind us that the story doesn't end just because the credits roll. Those lives, that pain, kept going. Sadly, Dedric Gobert's real-life story is just as heartbreaking. Only a year after Poetic Justice, in 1994, he was murdered at just 22 years old during a fight in Mira Loma, California. His career was just getting started, and we never got to see the full potential of what he could have become as an actor. But for many of us, he'll always live on through those roles. From Boys in the Hood to Poetic Justice, Dedric Gobert gave us authenticity. A young brother who looked, acted, and felt like the people we knew in our own neighborhoods. And even though his life was cut short, his presence in these films keeps his memory alive in the culture. Maya Campbell as Shantae brought something real to Poetic Justice. She played Lucky's cousin, and if you remember, she was tough-headed, always butting heads with him, never afraid to disagree. That was Shantae, strong-willed, stubborn, and not letting anybody, not even family, walk over her. And Maya carried that role with a natural energy that made it feel like she wasn't even acting. But Maya's story off-screen hits a lot harder. After Poetic Justice, she wasn't just another face, she was on the rise. Everywhere you turned in the 90s, Maya Campbell was there. She was supposed to be next up. But life doesn't always follow the script. Maya struggled with bipolar disorder, and when addiction came into the picture, things got really hard. Over the years, videos started surfacing of her in tough situations, homeless, in pain, clearly not in the place any of us remembered her. For fans, it was heartbreaking, because this wasn't just an actress, this was Maya. This was Shantae. This was Tiffany from In the House. This was someone we grew up watching, now facing battles most of us couldn't imagine. There's something about Maya that makes people root for her, even now. Maybe it's that spark she had on screen, or maybe it's because deep down, we all want to see her win, to see her heal, to see her find peace. At 48 years old today, she still has a story worth telling, and a life worth fighting for. And that's a wrap on today's journey through Poetic Justice. We hope you enjoyed revisiting these unforgettable characters and the stories behind them. Which character's journey touched you the most or surprised you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, this is The Silent Gossiper, keeping the classics alive, one story at a time. See you next time.